If you want to go to a national park this weekend, you better do it on Saturday, because as of midnight Eastern, Saturday night, it looks like, unless there's a serious Hail Mary, the government's going to shut down. Gas and food prices, not sustainable, and it looks like whatever the Federal Reserve couldn't do to slow down the consumer, gas and food have done it for them. Home prices, maybe a little confusing, but when you break it down, it's all pretty simple. And when it comes to our interest rates in general, it looks like our national debt has caught up with us. Welcome back to This Week in Mortgage, everyone. I'm Sam Battaglia at Mortgage Black in Beverly Hills. I hope you had a great week. All right, here we go again. Government shutdown, inevitable. The fiscal year ends at midnight tomorrow Eastern time. And there's going to be millions affected by this. Millions of jobs, millions of families. This is our country. And it's not going to be running as of midnight Eastern tomorrow, it looks like, in the way it should run. Of course, at some point, it will get figured out. The question is, how long? Nobody really has that answer. As we recall, the last time we had a government shutdown in 2019, I want to say, that was the longest one on record. And it took the air traffic controllers on the East Coast, I want to say in JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark, to not show up to work, and then the government shutdown stopped, and everyone went back to work when they couldn't travel. So it will get figured out. The question is how long and what is going to be the catalyst to end it. Who knows? The long-term effect of this, once it is figured out, no matter how long that takes, is the confidence in the United States' ability to govern ourselves. Now, if we recall, we got a credit downgrade not that long ago from one of the big three credit rating agencies. Even though I'm not their biggest fan because I know what they did with mortgages back during the Great Recession, they might be right on this one. They are questioning our ability to govern ourselves. And we've already had one downgrade. Expect another two probably on the jiffy Monday morning. But the problem is this shutdown feels a little bit different than previous shutdowns. So hopefully, as I always say, hopefully everybody in Washington can play nice in the sandbox because we obviously need our country to be open for business. Moving on to gas and food prices. Oh boy, this is just not sustainable. Gas and food prices have essentially taken away all disposable income from the U.S. consumer, and whatever job the Federal Reserve couldn't do by raising interest rates to the levels that they are at, which I believe these are not sustainable, but oddly enough, they may go higher. We'll get to that. Gas and food prices have done it. I mean, this is getting out of control. I'm not going to go on my tantrum, I'll call it, about gas and oil and all that and how it's manipulated, how a cartel runs it, how this is somehow acceptable, how we're getting whacked at the pump every time we go. But the gas and food prices, which everybody has in common, are out of control. And as we know, as always, 70% of the U.S. economy, meaning about 20% of the world economy, is the U.S. consumer. And if the U.S. consumer is putting all their money into gas in their tank and food at the grocery store, there's not going to be that much left to buy goods, whether they be luxury or not, just goods in general. So this gas and food price thing has definitely done the job that the Federal Reserve couldn't do by raising interest rates to the level they have. So we'll see how this goes, but I just can't see this being a sustainable thing. Moving on to home values. Home values are interesting. Back in the Great Recession, 2008, 9, 10, whatever you want to call it, there was a lot of inventory. And home values, they came down substantially because we had a lot of inventory. They were calling it jingle mail, meaning banks were getting their mail out of their mailbox, and it was keys for people's homes, handing them in, jingling. Number one, those people really regret it because their home has probably doubled in price since then. But number two, nobody can really afford to sell right now because they can't really afford to buy. So back to mortgage love, and I'll define it again. Mortgage love is when you don't necessarily even like your house, but you love your 3% 30-year fixed or so mortgage. So you've got to keep your house, which makes the value of your house much higher to you than it does to a fresh buyer coming in at 6, 7, or 8% these days, depending on the occupancy. So home values, double-edged sword, saving grace. We have no inventory. Regardless of where rates are, regardless of where affordability is, they are holding. This is a push and pull right now, and I don't think anyone's going to be building anything crazy new when it comes to our builders in this country. So expect home prices to hold, but do expect them to taper off. And some of these unrealistic values in the first place, they are certainly coming in line now to a laughable level. And then moving on to interest rates in general. So back in the Great Recession, as I keep talking about this show, a lot of things in common, it seems like. Our national debt was less than $10 trillion, I want to say, at that point during those years. Our national debt has now tripled. It's over 30. I don't know the exact number, but I don't think it's less than 29. We have to service that debt as a country. So how do you service that debt? You got to get more money. So you got to print some treasury notes. Well, treasury notes are being printed, basic supply and demand. We have to sell more treasuries to service our debt, which has tripled over the last decade and a half. So you've got to incentivize the bond and treasury buyers to buy your debt, as our country has to do. So Federal Reserve raised rates, but we've felt like they're in control of them, but now it's getting a little bit out of control, and market forces of supply and demand seem like they're starting to take hold. So we've got to give a higher yield to our bond investors. I think Japan is the largest investor, has over $1 trillion worth of our national debt. And this new paper that we're printing, this is how we print papers, by printing treasuries, needs to be serviced. And we have to print new paper to service it because we need the money to pay the lenders, basically, Japan being one of them. So unless and when our national debt goes down, I guess don't expect the interest rate environment in general to go down. They might go down in mortgages because mortgage-backed securities are disconnected right now, a bit higher than where they need to be. That's a whole different story that we've talked about. But I don't see a plan in place to curb our national debt, and it seems like we're putting more on the books. So until we figure out our national debt, I don't think interest rates can actually come down in general. Okay, everybody, that is my show for this week. As always, I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for your time. It's the weekend again. Seems like it's going to be a nice weekend, minus the government shutdown that looks inevitable at this point. So please take care of each other. Be a good neighbor. Be a normal person, I guess, in this environment that we're in. Enjoy football. And as always, like I said, thank you for your time.